Portugal.
La Santa from Kakuma, Kenya.
Camilo from Italia.
Patricia from Poland.
Julio from
Amelia de México.
Marinês from Brazil.
Buenas tardes, Amelia de
Hey
México.
from Colombia.
Taban from Rome.
Lucia from Rome.
Alfonso from Rome.
Sandro from Rome.
Taban.
Welcome. My name is Jill Drzwicki, and I serve as the Gender Responsive Education Specialist here at the JRS International Office in Rome. Thank you for joining us today to commemorate this 40th anniversary of the Jesuit Refugee Service. I could hear all of you calling in from around the world, and it's deeply moving that you choose to be part of this commemoration this afternoon, or whatever time it is where you are. Before we get started, I'm going to share some technical instructions for you to enjoy the event at its best. I'm going to speak slowly about these instructions. The event will be in English, Spanish, and French. You can select your preferred language on Zoom. In the meeting webinar controls at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an icon for interpretation. Click interpretation, and then you can click the language you wish to hear. The live event, will be mainly in English with some interventions in Spanish. For those English speakers who wish to access interpretation in English during those sections of the event that are in Spanish, be sure to click English on the interpretation tab. Also, you can go at the top of the screen and select side by side in the view options on the top right of your screen. This will allow you to see both any videos or photos we will be sharing and the speaker simultaneously. But don't worry, we're going to note all of this information again in the chat section, which is at the bottom of your screen. If at any point you're struggling with the technology during today's event, specifically the interpretation, please just write us a note in the chat and we will do our best to help you address the problem and find a solution. We have our wonderful IT and communication staff standing by to help you. Finally, we kindly ask that you be sure to mute yourself during the event and keep your microphone off. Now that we have finished all of this housekeeping, allow me to say, as I did before, that it's very special to gather with colleagues, friends, and really a JRS family that is formed across the globe. I can see that there are 293 participants currently on this Zoom call, and more of you are following us on Facebook. Welcome and thank you for being part of this with us today. To commemorate this 40th anniversary of JRS and its mission to accompany, serve, and advocate on behalf of refugees and other forcibly displaced people, let me briefly put this anniversary event and JRS's mission into a historical context. In 1951, the Refugee Convention was being drafted and signed. The atrocities of the Second World War still loomed large, and the refrain of that time was never again, never again. Never again, and yet following the Vietnam War, hundreds of thousands of South Vietnamese were fleeing their homes. They were setting out in overcrowded boats across the South China Sea. Many did not survive that journey. They were killed by pirates or drowned because of storms or rough seas. And then in 1980, and bearing witness to that reality, Fr Pedro Arrupe implored Jesuits to respond to the plight of these Vietnamese refugees who were fleeing their war-ravaged country. 40 years later, we are here today, again and still. In 2020, we continue our work as there are nearly 80 million forcibly displaced people around the world. Again and still, too many of our refugee brothers and sisters are dying as they cross land and sea, fleeing violence and seeking safety. Too many are stuck in protracted realities as opportunities for being resettled or returning home are trending downwards. This is the context in which we gather today and in which we work every day to accompany, serve, and advocate for refugees. To ground us further in this anniversary of JRS, some members of this JRS family, again from around the globe, will read important historical documents about the history of JRS.
The help needed is not only material. In a special way, the society is being called to render a service that is human, pedagogical, and spiritual. It is a difficult and complex challenge. The needs are dramatically urgent. I have no hesitation in repeating what I said at our consultation. I consider this a new modern apostolate for the society as a whole, of great importance for today and the future, and of much spiritual benefit also to the society. I hope you will accept this letter and the request it makes with alacrity and availability. St. Ignatius called us to go anywhere we are most needed for the greater service of God. The spiritual as well as material need of nearly 16 million refugees throughout the world today could scarcely be greater. God is calling us through these helpless people. We should consider the chance of being able to assist them a privilege that will in turn bring great blessings to ourselves and our society.
While always ready to help refugees in their material and spiritual wants, and also in designs projects leading to a fuller and more independent life. We try to place especially emphasis on beings and doing with their then being doing for. We want our brothers and we want our brothers among refugees to Be one of share. Be one of share with them, of accompaniment, of walking together along the same path.
All associated with JRS will tell you, the refugees are our teachers. From them, we learn much. As an organization, the Jesuit Refugee Service was built from the bottom up. Experiences in the field and reflection on those experiences gave JRS its shape. Its vision came from its founder, Pedro Arrupe. Certainly, its horizons are shaped by our reading of the gospel, but its horizons are shaped by our reading of the gospel, but each new program is worked out on the ground with the people we serve, fitting their needs and mobilizing their resourcefulness. Looking through the eyes of the people we serve, we are given a fresh view, a quite new perspective, sometimes of joy, sometimes of shock. Forever after the world is a different place. Thank you.
One more housekeeping note before we continue with the program. We would like to ask you all to keep your videos off. That would help us. Thank you. Again, you can turn your video off at the bottom of the screen where it says Stop Video. Our first speaker today will speak to one of the key pillars of JRS's mission and ministry, accompaniment. Taban Patrick Constantino is a former refugee who was born in South Sudan, but raised in Uganda, where he lived for 19 years. He is one of the beneficiaries of the Jesuit Refugee Service. After completing high school, he was inspired by the work of the Jesuits, and he wanted to become a Jesuit himself. He passed through stages of formation in Tanzania, India, Ethiopia, Kenya, and he is now in Italy to complete his licentiate studies in social sciences. He serves on JRS's Administrative Council. Taban is passionate about social justice and education, and he dedicates his vocation to advocating for the rights of the most marginalized. Welcome, Taban.
Thank you, Jill, for the introduction, and welcome to everyone. The former Superior General of the Society of Jesus, Fr Pedro Arrupe, started this journey with refugees 40 years ago. It is about walking side by side with those forcibly displaced, the refugees, the IDPs, the returnees, forced migrants, and so on. Fr Arrupe, from his experience of accompanying the victims of Hiroshima atomic bomb attack, knew the great suffering faced by those dispossessed and displaced by destructive forces. From that experience, he also understood how important it is for people whose journey in life has taken such a difficult turn to be received, cared for, and accompanied. So as a Jesuit Superior General, he established the Jesuit Refugee Service to render practical assistance to those fleeing from conflict and repression in Vietnam. To people in this kind of situation, JRS seeks to offer them assurance that they are not alone. This offering of presence or accompaniment is a distinctive feature of the JRS operation, following the footsteps of Jesus Christ, whose loving presence shines forth, especially for those who face such dark moments in life. Accompaniment reflects the way of sharing the journeys of forcibly displaced people as the best way to understand their aspirations and to rekindle their hope. This idea is highlighted in JRS' way of proceeding, consisting essentially in a ministry of presence and sharing of being with rather than doing for. Over the years, JRS has restructured their strategic framework, but accompaniment remains its coordinating element. Accompaniment is about affirming the presence of God in human history, even in its most tragic episodes. Being people-centered, accompaniment provides protection, creates opportunities, and allows participation by the persons in difficulty. Through my encounter with JRS, I have experienced accompaniment and I embody its fruits. Growing up in a refugee camp, I remained hopeful because some people walked by my side. Having experienced accompaniment myself through the JRS, I have learned some important lessons. For instance, in order to truly support someone, there is need for you to get close. It is not enough to say from a comfortable distance, I know you are suffering. Being close helps in getting in touch with the real needs and aspirations of the people. Here, I have to speak a little more about myself. I first encountered JRS at a tender age as a refugee boy in Uganda. It was during this period that I encountered Jesuits who made a lot of impact in my life, particularly by their presence with the refugees. Their approach helped me to see beyond my own personal suffering and to begin to see how my hope is connected with that of my fellow refugees and that of others going through difficult circumstances. As a result, I got involved with JRS while I was in secondary school as a volunteer. The accompaniment I received helped me to mature in the Catholic faith and even inspired me to consider the Jesuit life in order to offer myself more fully for the ministry of presence. As a Jesuit information, I was missioned to the Yambio JRS project, South Sudan, for my pastoral fieldwork. There, I relieved and appreciated even more the benefit of being closer to the suffering. My personal background helped to shape the quality of my presence with the people, and I hope some of them were encouraged by my story. The ministry of presence, which Pedro Arrupe began 40 years ago, has inspired and transformed many lives. I am a living testimony. JRS has grown and continues to grow in the spirit of accompanying the refugees. Working closely with the suffering is an essential aspect of the mission of JRS. Accompaniment places us in the best place to serve and to drive the advocacy for the refugees. We are in this journey of presence together. Let us walk side by side as human beings to uplift and protect human dignity. Thanks for Arrupe for showing us how this act of mercy is possible in JRS. Let me share with you a few photos that reflect my experience of accompaniment through JRS. In this picture, that was when I was in a refugee camp, and I was actually volunteering at JRS. The bicycle you see over there was given by JRS for me to go from the camp to the office so that I could be able to continue working flexibly in my journey with the refugees. Next. And this is when I was missioned to Yambio JRS project. And the middle you see there was the project director for Yambio. And two of us scholastics were missioned to our pastoral field work there. So this was a time when we were trying to do an immersion to see how we are going to respond to the needs of the people right there. Next. And after having immersed ourselves there and having discovered their needs, we discovered that the students need career guidance. So we organized a career guidance, and this was the fruit. So thank you so much for the listening.
Thank you, Taban, for your reflection. I'm curious where that bike is today. You'll have to tell us later. We are so happy that your ministry has brought you here to Rome and that you continue to accompany JRS now through your service on our advisory council. Thanks again. Next, we are going to watch a video from Latin America. This video is part of a campaign launched by JRS Latin America to mark the 40th anniversary by reflecting on our mission and their motivos or reasons for continuing to serve.
Hola, mi nombre es Oscar Calderón, director del Servicio Jesuita de Refugiados en América Latina y el Caribe. Quiero con este sencillo video enviar un mensaje de fraternidad, de ánimo, de solidaridad a todos los refugiados, migrantes forzados y desplazados, compañeros y compañeras que encarnan la misión del servicio jesuita. Hace 40 años el padre Arrupe recibió la inspiración de Dios de fundar al Servicio Jesuita de Refugiados en el mundo. Hoy estamos presentes en más de 50 países y nuestra misión sigue estando vigente. Y por eso quiero invitarlos a pensar en 40 motivos para agradecer esta inspiración y 40 motivos para pensar en aquello que nos mueve, que nos moviliza, que nos saca de nuestras propias comodidades para pensar en los refugiados. Personalmente me motiva el conocer tantas historias en estos años de trabajo de personas afectadas por la violencia, por la discriminación, por la injusticia, que se sobreponen con esperanza, que siguen luchando y se reinventan su proyecto de vida para enseñarnos a todos la necesidad de reconciliarnos, de generar condiciones más justas para todos y para todas.
Thank you to our JRS Latin American colleagues for your continued service and for challenging and inspiring us to reflect on the reasons, 40 of them, that we continue to serve at JRS. It is now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Rosalind. Rosalind is the country director of JRS in Myanmar, supporting church and community-based organizations and serving internally displaced persons, or IDPs, in camps and conflict-affected areas. They accompany refugees returning from the Thailand-Myanmar border. Rosalind has 7 years of experience working in the refugee camps and focusing on formal, vocational, and non-formal education. She has 4 years of experience working on issues related to IDPs, returnees, and host communities in Myanmar. Currently, Rosalind is leading JRS Myanmar and focusing on the promotion of access to quality education for the children in IDP camps and other conflict-affected areas, and potential return areas in Kachin and Kaya states of Myanmar. Welcome, Rosalind.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello from Myanmar. First of all, I thank God for allowing me to be part of JRS in journeying with our brothers and sisters who are forcibly displaced. It is my honor to join this special event of the 40th anniversary of JRS. But I have mixed feelings. I feel sad because seeing many humanitarian organizations, including JRS in many countries for many years, reflects that there are still sufferings and injustices around the world, calling us to work together for the cause. But at the same time, I feel grateful that God gives JRS his blessings through many partners, volunteers, staffs, and donors to accompany refugees and other forcibly displaced persons for 40 years now. About me and JRS. When I started joining JRS in Thailand way back in 2009, my late mother was worried and didn't want me to go. She told me that the camp was dangerous and associated with ethnic armed groups. I told her that I would return immediately if I were not happy there. However, the mission of JRS is truly a call for me to do something good for other people who are marginalized. I've been working with JRS for about 11 years now. 7 years with Myanmar refugees in the camps in northern Thailand, and 4 years with internally displaced persons, IDPs, and refugee returnees in Myanmar. Since then, I'm grateful for many remarkable memories with refugees and IDPs, as well as my wonderful colleagues, JRS staff, and volunteers. They helped me know myself more, helped me understand the meaning of serve far more than I originally think of, basically as providing service necessary to refugees and IDPs, such as food, shelters, clothes, water, healthcare, and education services. To serve is indeed inseparable with to accompany and advocate. They are all connected. Working with the partners who are themselves refugees, sharing meals together, celebrating successes together, sometimes crying together with some who lost their family members in the big fire in the camp, are some unforgettable memories for me. May I tell you one example about how serving the refugees or IDPs is so inspiring to me. Whenever I visit the schools, I always have conversation with students and teachers, listening to their dreams. It was so amazing and uplifting to listen to what they would like to become and why. Students shared that they want to become medical doctors, engineers, economists, designers, scientists, teachers, musicians, etc. I strongly believe that they can become what they dream if given opportunities. However, education in the refugee camps or in some IDP camps or conflict-affected non-government control areas inside Myanmar is not recognized, and children cannot continue further education opportunities. This always motivates me to find ways in collaboration with other education stakeholders to raise their concern to officials from the Ministry of Education. For me, to serve is not only to provide service, but to find long-term solutions with other stakeholders, including the people we accompany. Also, there were times that their resilience is truly remarkable. I remember the time when one refugee camp we work in Thailand faced a terrifying fire which caused 37 refugee deaths, about 400 houses burned, including 3 schools we support. The cause of the fire was controversial, as intentional blaze and not cooking fire or forest fire, as there were witnesses who saw the small planes passing over and dropping something. The feeling of loss, more importantly, the loss of the loved ones, was so profound. When we rebuilt the schools that were burned down, we had meetings with camp leaders, parents, and teachers. We involved them in choosing the location of the school, developing school designs and construction plan. With the parents' labor support, the school was reconstructed successfully and in time. I could see the good results of working together as a community. To serve is to respect them and let them take actions for their own good. I would like to take this as an opportunity to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to all JRS volunteers and staffs, both the current and the previous ones. Thank you so much for your dedicated service and accompaniment along the journey. Deeply appreciated. With God's blessings, let's continue to serve with joy and compassion for the cause of our brothers and sisters who are forcibly displaced. This last flower photo was taken when I went to monitor and support the schools and teachers in conflict-affected areas in Kachin State. Each flower, though small and wild, is beautiful. It will bloom in its favorable environment. Thank you.
Rosalind, thank you for your intervention. And thank you for all the ways that you and your team continue to fulfill JRS's mission through your service. And thank you for sharing so personally your joys and sorrows along the way. Accompany, serve, and advocate. Advocate is the third part of JRS's mission. We are now going to watch a video in which Sister Denise Glenn and the JRS Cambodia team talk about their advocacy efforts to ban landmines.
I have no food to wash. Many refugees flee across lands strewn with landmines and cluster bombs as they try to escape the indiscriminate harm that these weapons cause. And so we, as a team of JRS, work to ban these weapons, to give people the right to peace and to safety. And we do this in a number of ways. We enable or create opportunities so that people with disability, whose rights we uphold, can speak for themselves. And we see this especially in the Nobel Peace Prize that you'll see the picture of. We also do it so we can provide ethical arguments to persuade governments to change their policy. And we work with other groups of people, other faiths, militaries and journalists, professionals and people in the streets, so that we can all work together for a world where peace, justice and human rights prevail.
Thank you to Sister Denise and the JRS Cambodia team. We will now hear about advocacy from our colleague Amaya Valkarcell. Unfortunately, Amaya is not well today, so she is going to join us through a video that was pre-recorded. Amaya is JRS's International Advocacy Officer. She originally joined JRS in 1998 as Policy Coordinator, and her work focused on the Great Lakes region of Africa and on South Asia, with regular missions to Rwanda, Burundi, and Sri Lanka. She then worked in Cambodia between 2003 and 2005. At the Arrupe Center for People with a Disability, a Jesuit mission in the northwest of the country and a heavily mined area, she organized a microcredit program for young landmine survivors. Amaya is still involved in supporting that mission and visits Cambodia on a regular basis. In 2009, Amaya returned to the Jesuit Refugee Service as International Advocacy Officer. Since 2018, Amaya has been seconded by JRS to work with the Migrants and Refugees section of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. The Migrants and Refugees section is an action-oriented Vatican office that is personally directed by Pope Francis to ensure that those forced to flee are not shut out or left behind.
Hello everyone. Hola a todos. Saludos a todos y a todas. Bonjour à tout le monde. True wisdom demands an encounter with reality, says Pope Francis in his recent encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti. I consider refugees as teachers. Through them, we see and understand reality from a unique perspective. They are the best advocate for their own cause, since they know the reality more than anyone else. To better understand reality wherever possible, JRS includes refugees in our teams, our own planning and decision-making. My story with JRS is a path of learning and friendship. In order to explain what our advocacy mission means, I want to refer to three people, to three friends, who have inspired me along this path. The first is Sister Denise Glenn, who is a JRS director in Cambodia. We just saw her in the video. Denise joined JRS in the 80s when many Cambodians were refugees in the Thai-Cambodia border camps. Today, she continues to be active in the world's disarmament efforts. I myself lived in Cambodia between 2003-2005, and here is a picture in Battambang in the northwest of the country. I am driving this car with some 30 children who were affected by landmines and by polio. These are the consequences of the war in Cambodia. So Denise suggests that effective advocacy is about being close to the people concerned and listening to their cries, making opportunities for people to tell their own stories, creating spaces where dialogue can take place between the centers of power and those advocating change, and being positive, suggesting alternatives to the situation we seek to change. Here is Kika Figaredo, another inspiration in Cambodia. He's now the Bishop of Battambang, and he's growing these vegetables with some of our friends in the Arrupe Center in Battambang. So examples of current JRS advocacy are our efforts to defend the right to protection of persecuted minorities, such as the Montagnards from Vietnam, the Yazidi from Iraq and Syria, or the Rohingya from Myanmar. My second inspiration is a Jesuit who already passed away, Michael Campbell Johnston, who, when working with JRS in Central America in the 80s, used to bring diplomats to the camps so that they could see with their own eyes and listen to the hopes and aspirations of displaced people. He used to say that an advocate is a person who supports or speaks in support of another. Often he or she has the knowledge or opportunity to do so in a way in which the person concerned does not or cannot. It is making heard the voice of those who cannot express it where it needs to be heard. The Society of Jesus, with its international spread and contacts, is well placed to do precisely this. Another example of what we are striving to bring to the international attention today is the plight of internally displaced people and the need to access rights, basic services, and legal protection. Pope Francis is our best advocate for this cause, and we thank him for being such an outstanding moral compass in our world. The third person who has inspired me in this path is Mark Raper, who was International Director of JRS in the 90s and is now the Superior of the Jesuit Mission in Myanmar. Here is Mark with Jenny Cafiso. As you can see, we work, but we also enjoyed friendship together. Mark used to encourage us to accompany and serve refugees in a way that helped them to stand on their own feet, free from dependency, and to establish a relationship of mutuality with them. This, in fact, was what brought me to work with JRS back in 1998. About advocacy, he suggested to establish a balance between listening and speaking. Surely, he said, the only way to learn about the needs and hopes of a refugee is to listen to her. Our biggest temptation on seeing the distress of the refugees in camps or in cities like Bogota, Johannesburg, Nairobi, is to begin projects to decide what the refugees need. But they did not undergo this experience in order to get things. Their human experience calls for respect and recognition. The frequent question is, why is God doing this to me? They have a right to ask this question, but it cannot be asked unless someone listens. This is our primary role, to listen to the questions, to the longing, and to the fundamental human need of refugees. And in a way, accompaniment is in itself an aspect of the kind of advocacy that JRS undertakes. Displaced people have a message that our world needs to hear. JRS has a mission to help the world learn from their experiences. We are not so much a voice for the voiceless, but we assist those without a voice to express themselves. They have a primary right to speak on their own behalf. In his recent words in Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis sets the way forward. Let me read you a paragraph of this beautiful letter. He says the following: our response to the arrival of migrating persons can be summarized by 4 words: welcome, protect, promote, and integrate. For it is not a case of implementing welfare programs from the top down, but rather of undertaking a journey together through these 4 actions in order to build cities and countries that, while preserving their respective cultural and religious identity, are open to differences and know how to promote them in the spirit of human fraternity. So let us continue walking with refugees, encountering reality through their eyes, engaging in it more profoundly in service of others. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
And thank you, querida Amaya, for your tireless advocacy efforts. Thank you for sharing a bit about some of the folks who have inspired you in your advocacy work along the way. And I think you are a great inspiration to all of us. In the next video, Adriana Tapia, who is the Religious Services Program Assistant for JRS USA, will read a prayer for the 40th anniversary.
Dios de todo consuelo, mientras nos dejamos la comodidad familiar del hogar, seamos refugiados en el camino, o un compañero de nuestros hermanos desplazados, que seamos conscientes de lo que da movimiento a nuestros pasos, el amor, que podamos recibir ese amor y llevarlo adelante, más allá de las fronteras, para que podamos acompañar, servir y defender en nombre de todas las personas desplazadas y sostener la misión a lo largo de los años que vienen. Mientras haya gente en esta tierra en búsqueda de refugio y protección, en este viaje, si alguna vez nos sentimos agobiados por la injusticia del desplazamiento, recordemos actuar como si solo tengamos tu amor y tu gracia, porque eso es todo lo que necesitamos. Mientras nos sostienes en tus manos. Amén.
It is now my great honor to introduce Father Arturo Sosa, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus. Father Arturo Sosa is originally from Caracas, Venezuela. As an aside, Father Sosa's home country produced more refugees than any other country besides Syria in 2019. Father Sosa entered the Society of Jesus in 1966. And during his formation, he studied for a doctorate in political science from the Universidad Central de Venezuela. And after his ordination in 1977, he became the Venezuelan province coordinator for the social apostolate, as well as the director of Centro Cumila, a research and social action center. Father Sosa served as the provincial of Venezuela from 1996 to 2004. He led the province in a communal discernment toward a vision and plan that has guided the province for 20 years. In 2014, he came to Rome to serve as the delegate for the interprovincial Houses of the Society. A member of General Congregations 33 to 35, he was elected Superior General at his 4th General Congregation 36 on the 14th of October in 2016. Father Sosa currently serves as the President of the Union of Superiors General, a position held for many years by servant of God Pedro Arrupe, the founder of JRS and a Jesuit who deeply inspires Padre Sosa's leadership and spirituality. We are most grateful for Father Sosa's time with us today.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Society of Jesus, I am pleased to join you for the 40th anniversary of the Jesuit Refugee Service. Today, we honor our mission to accompany, serve, and advocate for the forcibly displaced and to celebrate the loving service of the entire JRS family in the 40 years since my predecessor, servant of God Pedro Arrupe, founded JRS. My sincere gratitude goes out to every single one of you, JRS staff, Jesuits, volunteers, sisters, and other religious who act daily with courage and improve the life and future of our refugee sisters and brothers. My helpful thanks to our partners for your generosity and continuous support make the JRS mission a clear example of God's love for those most in need. For 40 years, JRS has been an important expression of the society's commitment to love and accompaniment of the poor and excluded in a distinctive Ignatian way. Father Arrupe, as you know, did not intend to accompany to have a charitable organization, one among many NGOs all over the world. His desire, Arrupe's desires, to begin JRS came from experience of compassion and deep feeling of Vietnamese refugees losing their life as they fled for safety and the end of decades of war. That compassion seems some technical problems. Again, that compassion that Arrupe felt, JRS was born in that, which came from his prayer and his experience of ministering in Hiroshima after the atomic bomb continues to animate JRS. It is expressed in the most important word of the JRS vocabulary, accompaniment. I want to stress again this important word for all of us, accompaniment. JRS walks with people, listens to their stories, works with them to walk forward. Father Arrupe wanted JRS that was human, pedagogical, and spiritual. He wanted JRS to be the presence of Christ to those who have lost almost everything. 40 years later, JRS is at work in 56 countries. Here in Rome, JRS began as a response to Ethiopian refugees fleeing famine and their native land. Today, JRS Centro Astali, located at the heart of our history in the Jesuit Church, welcomes refugees from all over the world with emergency services, job training, and interpretation into Italian society. In my native Venezuela, as was said before, JRS has been at work for decades. It started in service to Colombian fleeing civil war and now helps poor displaced Venezuelans survive in a country that are not scared for them. As reflect of the role of JRS in today's world, I am reminded of Pope Francis' recent encyclical Fratelli Tutti. The Holy Father invites us to a world of renewed encounter, of finding ways to dialogue with all brothers and sisters, especially the refugee and migrant among us, in calling us to go beyond the fear that deprives us of the desire and ability to encounter the other. We need to lose the fear. We see the importance of JRS mission, not only for those served, but also for those who serve, and especially those who will look the other way. In responding to the growing number of refugees worldwide, JRS has grown in ways that have been unimaginable to Father Arrupe. JRS now serves over 800,000 people, about 1 in every 100 forcibly displaced persons in the world today. One of them is directly supported or served by JRS. You make this possible. November 14 marks the official anniversary of the founding of JRS and what I have called on Jesuit ministry throughout the world to recognize as JRS Day. Starting this year, JRS Day will be an annual recognition of the Society of Jesus respond to the need of forcibly displaced people through the mission of JRS. So I hope to meet you every 14th of November as we meet almost every day around. To mark this 40th anniversary and to further recognize our commitment to forcibly displaced people around the world, I am happy to announce that the Society of Jesus will make a $1 million contribution toward JRS ongoing operations. I hope you all and others will generously join me in supporting JRS mission of accompaniment, service, and advocacy into the future. On this 40th anniversary, I am happy to confirm JRS as an important ministry of the Society of Jesus, a recognition of the reign of God in our midst, a space we can together put hands over hands with so many other people to collaborate in giving hope of life to so many people. Thank you so much. Muy buenas tardes, muy buenos días a todos. Que el Señor los siga acompañando.
Father Sosa, thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Grazie infinita. We sincerely thank you for the trust that you place in our work each day. We know that the work of JRS is deeply personal to you, and we are humbled and moved by your generous contribution to help us carry out this work. Thanks again. I'm excited also about JRS Day. Next, Father Tom Smallidge will join us. Father Tom Smallidge has been the International Director of JRS since October 2015. Father Tom is a native of Sacramento, California, and he was ordained as a Jesuit priest in 1986. His ministry has focused on community development. In 1999, Father Smallich was named Provincial of the California Province, and he served there for a 6-year term. From 2006 until 2014, he also served as the President of the Jesuit Conference of the United States, coordinating the national and international projects of the USA Jesuit provinces. He also worked with JRS in Masisi, in the Democratic Republic of Congo during 2015, before joining JRS as the International Director. Welcome, Father Smallich.
Thank you, Jill. And a special thanks to all of you who are part of our 40th anniversary event today. Particular thanks to Father Sosa and the other presenters on this very special occasion. Thank you for being part of the JRS family. I'm often asked a simple question, especially on this 40th anniversary, which would also be Father Pedro Arrupe's 113th anniversary, birthday. What would Pedro think of JRS today? First of all, I'm not sure that Pedro would even think that JRS would still be in existence. In 1980, there were 16 million refugees. He could not conceive of a world with 80 million. He would not conceive of people dying in the Mediterranean rather than the South China Sea. And he probably could not imagine the global North having closed its doors to refugees in the way that has happened most recently. If he did imagine us still in existence, I suspect it would have been in a few places, here and there, for a year or two. I don't think he would have imagined we would be in 56 countries, serving 800,000 people. Second, I think Don Pedro would be very happy that JRS does not do everything. We don't build roads. We don't run water systems. We don't manage refugee camps. We accompany people. And as a Jesuit working in JRS recently wrote me, the JRS niche is not just what we do, but the way we do it. And just as people ask me that question, I can imagine Pedro asking a simple question in that the point that he made in that founding letter. Is JRS's service human, pedagogical, and spiritual? To that, Don Pedro, I can honestly say, yes. JRS's service is fundamentally human. JRS strives to walk with the people we serve, listening to the stories of grief, of loss, of hope, and resilience. Every one of the 800,000 people that we accompany is an individual person, deserving of safety and dignity, whether she has crossed the Mediterranean in a dinghy, whether he fled drug dealers who seized his land, whether they have run from a government who does not care whether they live or die. Our service is pedagogical. As a Jesuit operation, of course, we take education seriously. But pedagogical also means the capacity and the desire to learn, to expand horizons, to make connections with the world, which is difficult, yet ultimately graced. From elementary school programs in Beirut, to supporting high school girls in Malawi, to teaching refugee teachers in Abidjan, Chad, we take education very seriously. But it's more than that. It's training people to build communities of reconciliation among refugees and between refugees and local residents. It is helping displaced people find their own voice as advocates for safety, for peace, for opportunity. And what we do is profoundly spiritual. Above all, we respect and support the faith lives of those we accompany, be they Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, or any other faith. A couple of years ago, I was visiting JRS in Kampala, Uganda. And with a small group of women, I heard the story of a Congolese refugee that literally broke my heart and left all the other women in the group, each of whom had her own story, left everyone in tears. Yet at the end of our meeting, this woman who had been through so much thanked God that God had never abandoned her, that God's grace had brought her to JRS. The spiritual is so much part of what we do. It is the spiritual dimension that goes beyond the people we accompany and serve. The spiritual is the necessary dimension of moving forward. I am convinced that the crisis that Father Arrupe saw, the refugee situation 40 years ago, is now a challenge. It is a human condition that can be resolved. But I believe the crisis now is fundamentally a spiritual one. It's a crisis which is calling each of us in our world to conversion, a deeper understanding of our common humanity, realizing once again that fear and anxiety are not gifts from God, that we are called to choose and welcome through God's love. For it is that biblical welcome of the stranger, the hard work of building and rebuilding communities, the ultimate foundation of God's love on which our work rests, that Father Arrupe called us to take seriously. It is the foundation of hope that all of us share, the foundation upon which we are all called to co-create with God and the people we accompany. Thank you for being part of the JRS family. Thank you for helping to build that hope so that those we accompany can survive and learn and make choices for their own futures. Back to that question. What would Father Arrupe think of JRS today? I believe he is smiling with us. Happy birthday, Don Pedro. In this 40th year of JRS, no one has evoked a sense of care and transformation for those we serve like Pope Francis. From his first journey out of Rome to the Rock of Lampedusa, to his Sunday Angelus prayers for displaced people, Francis inspires us by word and example. And he has shared that love and that challenge with JRS.
Il giorno in cui ricordiamo l'anniversario di fondazione del servizio dei Gesuiti per i rifugiati, vogliamo ricordare un momento importante di questa nostra storia, la visita di Papa Francesco al centro Astalli. Vorremmo ricordare alcune delle parole in ricordo di Pedro Arrupe che il Papa ha detto in quell'occasione. Grazie a quanti si danno da fare per accogliere queste persone con un progetto. Grazie ai Gesuiti, a voi, operatori, volontari, benefattori, che non donate solo qualcosa o del tempo, ma che cercate di entrare in relazione con i richiedenti asilo e i rifugiati, riconoscendoli come persone, impegnandovi a trovare risposte concrete ai loro bisogni. Tenere sempre viva la speranza, aiutare a recuperare la fiducia, mostrare che con l'accoglienza e la fraternità si può aprire una finestra sul futuro, più che una finestra, una porta, e ancora di più, si può avere ancora un futuro. Ed è bello che a lavorare per i rifugiati insieme con i Gesuiti siano uomini e donne cristiani e anche non credenti o di altre religioni, uniti nel nome del bene comune, che per noi cristiani è specialmente l'amore del Padre in Cristo Gesù. Sant'Ignazio di Loyola volle che ci fosse uno spazio per accogliere i più poveri nei locali dove aveva la sua residenza a Roma. E il padre Arrupe, nel 1980, fondò il servizio dei Gesuiti per i rifugiati e volle che la sede romana fosse in quei locali, nel cuore della città. E penso a quel congedo spirituale del padre Arrupe in Thailandia, proprio in un centro per rifugiati. Servire, accompagnare, difendere, 3 parole che sono il programma di lavoro per i Gesuiti e i loro collaboratori.
The decision to be present in areas of greatest need, in conflict and post-conflict zones, has brought you international recognition for your closeness to people and your ability to learn from this how better to serve. I think especially of your groups in Syria, Afghanistan, the Central African Republic, and the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where you accept men and women of different religious beliefs who share your mission. The Jesuit Refugee Service works to offer hope and prospects to refugees, mainly through the educational services you provide, which reach large numbers of people and are of particular importance. Offering an education is about much more than dispensing concepts. It is something which provides refugees with the wherewithal to progress beyond survival, to keep alive the flame of hope, to believe in the future, and to make plans.
Pope Francis continues to speak to us even today. For our 40th anniversary, he sent this letter to me and to the entire JRS community. As the Jesuit Refugee Service celebrates the 40th anniversary of its founding by the servant of God, Pedro Arrupe, I ask you to convey my cordial best wishes to those gathered at the Estali Center here in Rome, and to all JRS staff and volunteers throughout the world. My thoughts turn also in a special way to the many men, women, and children who seek refuge and assistance from JRS. May they and their families always know that the Pope remains close to them and is praying for them. As you seek to renew and deepen your commitment to serving the varied and complex needs of refugees and other forcibly displaced persons, I pray that all of you will continue to draw encouragement and wisdom from the vision and example of your founder. Father Arrupe translated his shock at the suffering of those fleeing their homeland in search of safety as a result of the war in Vietnam into a deeply practical concern for their physical, psychological, and spiritual welfare. This profoundly Christian and Ignatian desire to care for the well-being of all who find themselves in utter desperation has inspired and guided the work of JRS for the past 40 years. From its beginnings with the Vietnamese boat people in the early 1980s to the present day, when the coronavirus pandemic has made it clear that the entire human family is in the same boat, facing unprecedented economic and social challenges. Indeed, all too many people in today's world are forced literally to cling to rafts and dinghies in an attempt to seek refuge from the viruses of injustice, violence, and war. Faced with such grave inequalities, JRS has a key role to play in raising awareness of the plight of refugees and other forcibly displaced people. Yours is the vital task of extending the hand of friendship to those who are lonely, separated from their families, or even abandoned, accompanying them and giving them a voice, especially by providing them with opportunities to grow through educational and development programs. Your witness to God's love in serving refugees and migrants, moreover, is essential for building that culture of encounter, which alone can provide the basis for authentic and enduring solidarity for the sake of our human family. As you look to the future, I am confident that no setback or challenge, whether personal or institutional, will distract or discourage you from responding generously to this urgent call to promote the culture of closeness and encounter through your resolute advocacy of those whom you accompany each day. With these sentiments, I renew my prayerful good wishes for your work and ask you also to remember me in your prayers. Entrusting all associated with the apostolate of JRS to the loving intercession of Mary, Mother of Hope and Comfort of Migrants, I willingly impart my apostolic blessing as a pledge of joy and peace in Christ our Lord. From the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome, hand-signed Franciscus. Pope Francis, thank you. Grazie mille. Gracias. Merci. Shukran. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for leading us in our accompaniment, service, and advocacy.
Father Smallich and Pope Francis, thank you for your bold, prophetic, and steadfast leadership. And thanks to all of you out there today joining us to commemorate this anniversary from around the globe. Looking at my screen, I can see that you've joined us from Budapest, Hungary, to Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, to Jakarta, Indonesia. We will be back at 5:30 here at the same link, where we will celebrate the 40th anniversary Mass, where Father General will preside. And so for now, I'm supposed to say to you, go in peace. But how can I say go in peace and continue to accompany, serve, and advocate when you are going out into a world where there are nearly 80 million forcibly displaced people? Out into a world where race is set against race and ethnic cleansing is another name for genocide. Where violence against girls and women looms large and beyond battlefields into public spaces, but also in their own homes. Out into a world where there is a global pandemic and the most vulnerable are suffering disproportionately. Where people are homeless, people are hungry, they are out of money and out of work, while a culture of indifference spends billions on what does not bring healing to people or the planet, but instead brings more destruction, more displacement, and more death. With a world like that out there, how can I say to you, be hopeful and go in peace? But I dare to say, be hopeful. And now more than ever, continue to accompany, serve, and advocate for refugees. Because Jesus still says, I give you my peace. But remember, he or she who says, I give you my peace, also says, if you would be my disciple and thereby have my peace, take up your cross and accompany me. So I dare to say, go in peace, if you dare. And may we all say on this 40th anniversary of JRS, Amen. Again, for those of you who wish and dare, we will see you back here at the same length at 5:30 for the Mass. I say again? Rome time, 5:30 Central European time.